All right. Hey, what's up, NABJ? Happy Taco Tuesday. Raise your hand if you had tacos for dinner.
Last week.
Y'all slipping. Y'all slipping on Taco Tuesday. But we do appreciate you guys hanging out with us today. This has been a different time for everybody in terms of how we have been spending the last several weeks. Now it's actually 2 months. But a lot of us have been learning new ways to stay connected with our audiences and also to produce content as well. And that's what we're going to talk about today, innovation through IG Live. And we have a pretty good crew with us today in terms of what they've been doing. We're going to share some of our thoughts and processes for how we've been doing IG Lives. We're going to take some of your questions as well. So please utilize the Q&A section here on Zoom. Let's start with Kelsey Nelson, graduate of the University of Maryland. Terps in the building. Got her master's at Georgetown. Okay, strong flex there. You've heard her on several radio shows in the DMV, 106.7 The Fan, as well as Fox Sports Radio in DC as well. Also served as sideline reporter for the Big East Digital Network. Her IG is The Real K Nelson, and her IG Live is hashtag ListenIn with KNN. Also got Benjamin Bullock in the Zoom tonight. Graduate of Delaware State University, if you couldn't tell about the sweatshirt he's got on. He's produced content for LSU, University of North Texas, the Dallas Cowboys, also an ESPN alum. And Kelsey, didn't you work at ESPN as well for a hot second?
I did ESPN Radio, yes.
ESPN is all up in the building. Ben's IG is Ben Bull Jive, and his IG Live is hashtag Crunch Time. I'm Michael Eves, SportsCenter anchor. My IG is Mr. Michael Eves, and I use the hashtag at the house because that's pretty much where we have been over the last couple of months. So let's go through the process here of how we've been putting together these IG Lives and hopefully help some of you at home as well as you try to produce content during this pandemic. Kelsey, let's start with you. Obviously, you had a lot of background in radio, and you would think, oh, then maybe podcast would be the way to go. But what drew you specifically to IG Lives?
That's a great question. I will say everybody told me, Kelsey, you need to start showing your face and these amazing guests that you're getting. And then I feel like the rest of us, I was at home and I just kept getting notifications. This person is on Instagram and that person's on Instagram and this league is on Instagram. So I didn't want to be behind the train. So I got on it and it's been truly amazing. And honestly, if it's Instagram Live or anything live, Facebook Live or whatever, you need to be on live right now. Like you said, we're all at home. People want content. They miss sports. So I didn't want to be behind the train. And so I got on it. People liked it and I kept it going.
Yeah. Ben, what about you?
Man, so I don't work directly or full-time in sports anymore. I kind of just do my own thing. So when this Last Dance thing came out, I felt like I needed to kind of chime in myself, so I figured, why not hop on Instagram Live, kind of give just my voice and voice my opinion on everything. And that's kind of how I came up with it.
Yeah, mine was a total fluke. Real talk. One of my best friends who used to be a news anchor in LA and worked at CNN, Michaela Pereira, she hit me up one day. She's like, hey, I'm thinking about doing some IG Lives. People have been starting to do them. I'm like, cool. Because at that point, honestly, the only IG Live I'd really been paying attention to was D Nice, right? Because D Nice, that first weekend he did it, it was all the rage. And she's like, let's do an IG Live. I'm like, all right, cool. And so we did it, just kind of talking whatever. And I was like, yo, this is actually a good idea to, let's be real, to spend some time because all of our work schedules have been different since the pandemic hit. I mean, I was doing 4 and 5 sports centers a week. Now I'm doing maybe 6 or 7 in the entire month. So I have free time. But again, it is a way to stay connected to your audience and also give them some content that they wouldn't get normally, but also some content that maybe you may not have been producing normally because of your other obligations. That's how I fell into it. I will say this, from a content producing standpoint, one of the benefits of IG Live is that you have 2 opportunities for viewership, right? You have the live vehicle of the IG Live, which you can promote on multiple platforms, but then you can take that interview that you did or conversation, however you want to cast it, and then repurpose it across multiple platforms. And that's what I've been doing. Either I'll post the whole thing to my stories or IGTV. Sometimes I'll also post it to YouTube. I'll take clips. I'll put it on Vimeo so I can run a longer clip on Twitter or put it on Facebook. Multiple platforms from one particular interview. That is the thing with IG Live, is that it is live. Because you can do something on Zoom and record it and then process it out. But there is the element of live. But again, Ben, one thing about the live is you have to promote the fact that you're going to be live at a very specific time.
Yep.
How have you tackled that aspect of your IG lives?
Man, so so really I just kind of took the vlogging aspect to it, because I've had some experience doing that in the past. So what I did was I just kind of put together a plan on how to announce it in a very creative way in terms of trying to incorporate what my message is and what everything's going to happen when I go live on Instagram, and also the graphic design aspect as well. So shout out to Andre Wheeler, good friend of mine. Me and her collabed on just kind of help driving the brand out and everything with crunch time and everything. So that's what I had to do. And then, just kind of strategically posting stories, posting, even like live hits, that you might record on your phone and post to Twitter and all that kind of things or whatever. So I definitely got a lot of help and a lot of people shared and a lot of support in doing that.
Kelsey, what about you?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, it's all about the promotion aspect of it. When you're doing Instagram Live, I mean, you want people there to watch it. I don't see the point of doing it with nobody there. So it's a lot of graphics. Much like Ben said, I have a great team around me. I have my show is DMV based since I'm from the DMV area. I have a go-go beat that comes on. Like there's just so many aspects of it that are incorporated into it. And that's what I want. I want people to kind of really come in and just, this is supposed to be something we're all dealing with stuff. The country's crazy right now. So I really want it to be a good time for people. And like you said, it's pushing it out and promoting it so you get this viewership, and then you want to hook them on, right? It's not just the one-time thing. That consistency part is very key to it. And again, like you said, put it on Vimeo, put it on YouTube, post it on Facebook, anywhere where you have social media, send it to your family so they can send it to their coworkers. You really want to just continue to grow that bandwagon of your listeners and your followers.
Yeah, because the great benefit of Instagram as a vehicle, same thing with YouTube and Twitter and all these social media platforms, it is free to use. So you have this venue that you can reach your audience, and it is free. But back to Ben's point about how you promote your IG lives, the graphics that you use are a huge enhancement for that process. I've been using, I believe it's Canva, and I got that suggestion from Taria Williams from Turner Sports. And so I'll put together some type of graphic with me and whoever I'm going to have on, and I'll format it differently for Twitter than I will for Instagram, and I plan out those posts to when I want to promote it so people will know based on a couple things. One, when the IG live is actually going to live, because I've been doing different times with mine based on where my guests reside. If they live in LA on the West Coast, I try not to do it too early for them, so I'll do it a little later on the East Coast, things of that nature. But also it gives them something to promote as well. So every time I do one of these little promo flyers, if you will, I send it to my guests so they can post it on their platforms as well. So then you get two waves of promotion. And then also, if you use certain third-party platforms, I use Later for mine, that I can post them days in advance, hours in advance, and they will post without me having to stand by my phone and post them at the time they will hit those respective platforms. I will say this, one key is just the fact that you are going live at a certain time is probably not enough necessarily to hook a larger audience. So how you go about promoting those particular posts matter as well. So let's say last night, for example, I had Chris Spencer. He's a comedian, writer, actor, but he knows Michael Jordan very well. He's a huge golfer. So I would try to put things we would potentially discuss in the post on Twitter, say, find out what Chris Spencer thinks of Michael Jordan on the golf course tonight at the house, IG Live, So those little hooks as well are really important, Kelsey, if you're trying to get that audience engagement, because just saying the fact that Kelsey's going to be an IG Live, that might not hook everybody except the people you know.
Right.
Exactly. Like I rely so much on my guests. And like you said, I'm creating these graphics. I try to get it to their PR team and the athlete or whoever is joining me at least 2 days before so they can post it. And of course, a lot of the younger athletes will post it in their stories. It's awesome if they post it on their actual page because they're thankful and they also want to bring their audience to it. And like you said, it has to look good, but then also cut those important clips after you're doing it, whatever important was said. You talked about The Last Dance was really big. I had Jasmine Jordan on my show, and a lot of people actually, I feel like, didn't know her story. We all know about Jordan's boys, but she wanted to share her platform. And of course, doing that right before The Last Dance episodes 9 and 10 aired, that was a big show for me. I mean, she was able to give insight into MJ that none of us got to see, how he was off the court as a dad and how he is now as a granddad. So I best believe I pushed and promoted that because I knew it was the biggest thing that everyone was talking about. And even now, we're still kind of talking about it because right now, no other documentary has captured us like that. So still push that content that you have. You can still push and promote that flyer. Still use that hashtag. You have to capitalize off the moment. I feel like the time is always now.
Hey, Ben, let me ask you this. We have a question from one of our attendees. What advice would you give for people who've never done an IG Live in terms of setting it up and the equipment that you use to make it look as good as possible with whatever resources you have?
I just know for me, when I go live, I just use my phone to just make sure your lighting is good and that you're connected to Wi-Fi, because we've seen, even with this past weekend with Ludacris and Nelly's thing was completely shot. And then two, have like a script or a plan, because you can tell even watching that live, like Ludacris had like a set list of what he was going to do. Nelly, he was just all over the place. Now, that's not the way you do it, especially, I mean, all of us work in media and we work in scripts and we produce stuff. You know, we got to have a set schedule, have our set questions and everything done. So, I mean, for me, man, like, honestly, you really don't need much, man. Just make sure your lighting's good, your Wi-Fi connection is good, and it make sure your phone charged too. That's another thing, because, you know, you don't want to be going live on your phone on 30%. You know what I mean? Because you face that situation to where I had a situation last night with Jeremy Pargo. He was trying to charge his phone and try to sit it down, but it kept moving, so it was looking kind of bad on that aspect. So, but make sure you're charging your phone. Like for me, I always have my phone charging while The Last Dance was going on, and then I go get set up about 15 minutes beforehand and be ready to roll.
Yeah, some of this stuff at this point, for most people starting out, it should be a no-brainer in terms of certain things you should have. As Ben said, make sure your phone is charged all the time. Put the do not disturb function on your phone, so you're not getting text messages or phone calls during that, because that can screw up everything as well. Yeah, no doubt. And also invest in a light that puts you in the best possible position, right? So in front of me right now, I have a little circle light that I bought off Amazon. It may have been 15 or 20 bucks, right? You can get them. It's really, really cheap, but it makes a world of difference in how you're going to present yourself. You want to look as professional as possible, but also to Ben's point, if you're producing content, you have to think like a producer, right? So if you're having a conversation or an interview, now I use those two terms loosely because if it's someone I really, really know, it's a conversation. I may lead it with questions, but it's a conversation. It's probably a little more back and forth. If it's someone that I kind of know, but I haven't had a lot of personal connections with, it's going to be an interview. And that's going to be way more structured from my standpoint, because I want to learn something about them that I didn't already know, but also lead the conversation in the right direction. And in order to do that, you have to have some type of game plan on what you're going to ask. So treat this the same way you would any other interview that you would have in any other profession as it relates to media that you're going to be posting on Instagram Live. Just because it's IG and it's on your phone, you know, don't half step with it. Treat it like it's very professional, because people could see it, and from that they will base an opinion on your ability to conduct an interview regardless of what platform it's on. So again, try to make it look as professional as possible and have a good plan as well. We have another question here. For those who want to build and produce content through a portfolio, what would you say is a good idea to take these IG Lives and create a website? I would say this, like, you know, you can see a lot of Kelsey stuff on her YouTube channel, and I put mine on YouTube and your IGTV. I don't know if you need necessarily a website specifically for IG Live. Now, if you have a website already, you could post them, but there's other places from a social media platform, Ben, that I think a lot of people can utilize for their IG content once they've done with a live session.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because I know, to Kelsey's point, which she said earlier, you know, just kind of just see if you can slice up a lot of stuff based off your interview. Because my last one I did on Sunday was like an hour long, and obviously I know a lot of people ain't gonna really watch that hour long. But if you cut out certain parts and you put that on Twitter, and then you drop, you know, the actual link to your YouTube link to where people can see it, that's really the best way to go about it. I mean, even from ESPN standpoint, like, you'll see just snippets of stuff, and then they'll have a full link to where you can go check out everything else like that. So I think that's the best way to kind of continue just to drive that conversation, especially on Twitter, man, because you can't, I mean, you can do Periscope, but like, anybody really doing Periscope like that anymore. So what you do is you just take your interview, put it in Premiere, iMovie, whatever editing software that you use, chop that up and take bits and pieces and throw that thing on Twitter and continue to push that thing out.
Kelsey, how do you go about booking your guests?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like I get this question all the time. And I will say it's really the brand that you build. So that's why I'm so particular about what I put out there. And also, as I said, when you put something out there, no people are looking and watching. So when I first went live, I was booking my own guests. And a lot of the guests I pulled, my first guest, Nick Lowry, we had just talked at the Super Bowl in Miami, of course, before all this hit. So it was literally my personal connection. And then after that, when I started going live, PR people started reaching out to me, hopping in my DMs, sliding the DMs, and pushing their own guests. But many times it's just me reaching out to my network. NABJ is a great resource. You have so many people here who will be your guest on your show, or they know somebody who will be a guest. But also, again, when you have top quality content, your job is easier. People will come to you. And then also I have a great team that's always reaching out, and diversity is big to me, trying to diversify my portfolio, because for me, it is something that I want to take to an employer because I freelance, right? So I'm trying to make sure that I always show my value and what it's worth. But I think booking guests, again, first look at, where you are. Like this Saturday, I have some people coming from Katie's documentary, Basketball County in the Water. Again, I pulled my DMV connections, right? I'm from this area. I knew a lot of people. We're going to talk about that. But then for the national ranks, I pulled from events I've been to. These are conversations I've had with people over a long period of time, because also the worst thing you could do is also just slide into a PR person's, thing and think that you're supposed to get a guest. They're going to want to see, how many viewers you have, where is the platform, what's the benefit to the athlete or to the guest. So make sure you have all of that before you reach out to get guests. And also LinkedIn is also great. I always tell people that all the time. I've booked so many people for my podcast through LinkedIn, and it's a great source to also just push and promote your platform.
Yeah, I've really tapped into my own personal network. A lot of the people I've had are literally personal friends of mine who may be in the business or just sports fans by nature. But I will say this, I've also tapped a lot of ESPN colleagues. Now, to be fair, I'm doing that specifically because I'm not on SportsCenter as much as I usually am. So I'm picking a lot of ESPN personnel. So my bosses who I know are watching either at home or in their office at Bristol to see that I'm also including ESPN people. I'm doing that for a purpose. However, I'm only picking people from ESPN that I actually vibe with, to be fair. So, so tap into your network in terms of your personal friends, but also people that you work with from an employment standpoint. And here's the thing, and Kelsey mentioned this, NABJ is your best networking opportunity to find guests. I don't care what particular sports topic or sports event that you're looking for an IG Live, there is someone that works for NABJ, a member of NABJ, and on this task force that you could probably contact and that would be willing to come on and talk to you. So take advantage of the listserv. Take advantage of the people that you have met at NABJ conventions in the past. You can line up guests pretty easily if you just tap into the network that is literally right there in front of you. You don't always have to have an A-list athlete or an A-list coach for an IG Live. Tap into people who are experts in that particular field, in that particular market, and you can have some compelling content. It's just all about the conversation. Once you build up a repertoire of having a lot of content, then you're more likely to get the eyes of someone else that may have reach to an athlete or coach. Like Kelsey was talking about, these PR people that are out there, they're not having the same opportunities they were several months ago. So they're looking for these outlets as well to keep their people in the limelight. And if you do a good job with an interview that you have with A. Sherrard Blakely from Boston, or Mark Spears from the Bay Area, or anybody, Michael Lees from ESPN, like you can have something that a PR person look like, I think this would be an opportunity for my client. So again, tap into the network that you have available through NABJ. Well, I'll also say this. One thing that I have done, and Kelsey mentioned this and Ben as well, as we don't have live sports going on right now, but we have had sports-related events that can be a peg for a theme or a series of interviews, right? So when ESPN several weeks ago, or back in April, we didn't have the Masters this year, but we had several days of old Masters clips. So I did 4 days in a row tied to our own programming, and I had Masters-specific guests to each day based on what that event was. So we had the 1986 Masters with Jack Nicklaus. So I had Trey Wingo who was old enough to remember that entire thing. I had another one with Michael Collins, our golf analyst. It was Tiger's first victory there in 1997. But then I also had someone that was younger, a younger generation in the business. Her name is Tisha Allen, a former professional golfer. I had her talk about Tiger last year because she was someone who got into golf because of Tiger back in 1997, and she got to see him win again in 2019. So that was a theme that I built based on some program that was always but that was on the programming schedule coming up. But Ben, you talked about The Last Dance. That was something clearly that a lot of people are going to be paying attention to. Give our attendees an idea of how you would plan out a theme of guests based on any particular event that was going on.
Okay, so I tried to get, so like, for example, my first episode, I had Eric Woodyard, who's also a member of NABJ, works for ESPN Chicago. I had Jason Jones, works for The Athletic out of Cali. And I had Brandon Scoop B. Robinson, works for Heavy.com. I met all three of those guys at NABJ, all three of them. So the angle I tried to take was, one, all of them were sports writers, heavy personalities. Eric actually used to work in Utah for the Salt Lake, one of the Salt Lake papers out there. So that was the 98, 97 Utah Jazz connection. Jason, he's been covering the NBA for a while, and he actually grew up in LA. So that was the 91 finals connection. He grew up in LBC. And then Brandon Scooby Robinson, he is just all over the place, man. He's one of the up-and-coming, well, not even up-and-coming. He's like really one of the top reporters out there. So he has really good podcasts and everything. And he's very connected. So I kind of wanted to hone in on people that were like my age, kind of around that Jordan era when we was like maybe like 9 or 10. And they kind of give an older perspective who's been around. And then kind of give like a popular or a pop sensation focus on that as well. So that's the kind of the wave I went. And then I even had Talia Wilkins from ESPN, also a member of NABJ. She actually works on the Detail series that they had covering The Last Dance. So I try to take on a lot of different type of aspects, a lot of different people's viewpoints. And even on Sunday night, I had a guy, his name is Curtis KG Graham. He actually owns a magazine, a digital magazine out here in Dallas. They have about 30 to 40,000 followers on their page. So really, I just wanted to focus on the culture, the popularity, the sneaker game, that kind of aspect too of Jordan, because I know that aspect of Jordan, I mean, he really changed the game in that area. So I just really try to get a lot of different people's perspectives about Michael Jordan, the Bulls, and everything.
Kelsey, what about you?
Yeah, I'll start with The Last Dance. So, of course, again, it was the biggest phenomenon. You had to have something related to that. I talked about Jasmine Jordan being on, but on the other side, I had Craig Hodges on, who, of course, was not in the documentary. And best believe, yes, he had a lot to say. And I thought that was important because I wanted to cover the parts that weren't in the documentary. And he was able to do that. And he was able to give some background stories that not all of us knew. Because remember, the documentary was told from MJ's point of view. When you tell something from your point of view, you're not always going to put everything in it because, again, you're shining yourself in the best light. And then also, I think the Rooney Rule right now is a hot topic. I had Mark Collins on. I had Donovan McNabb on my show. I wanted to get former players' perspectives from two different teams. Of course, Donovan with the Eagles. Mark Collins played with the Giants, and they're on two different sides of the ball. And then next week, I'll have Jim Rooney on, who, of course, is the son of Dan Rooney. And we're going to dig into it. We're going to get into the topic. I think it's hot. And I really want to see what can we do if people don't agree with this new proposal to the Rooney Rule. How do we fix it? Because it's a problem in coaching. I'm going to do a whole HBCU show coming up because a lot of HBCU coaches feel like they don't have the same opportunities. Levon Kirkland is a guest that I've been talking to. He used to play with the Steelers. We're going to talk about it. He's been in the NFL's coaching program. He didn't feel like, he had a fair shot to get to that offensive coordinator type of ball game to talk about the Rooney Rule. So again, you have to see what's trending. There are still sports topics going on, and you have to find a way to dig deeper into them. People always say like there's no sports going on, but there's so many side stories. Even KD's documentary here in PG County, a lot of people some DC people are like, hey, well, the doc was great, but what about DC ball players? What about Baltimore ball players? I mean, there's just, again, these side stories that you can pull from to make a larger story for your live.
So basically what you really have to do is pay attention to what's going on, but also have some forward thinking and look ahead in terms of what would have been happening on this particular date, right? So in June, we won't have the NBA, but there is a date that the NBA draft was supposed to be held. So on that day or leading up to that day and around that day, what's a guest that you could have or a series of guests that you could have to talk about something NBA draft related? Maybe the greatest draft of all time, 1984, or maybe the draft in 2003, or who's going to be drafted this year, but instead of June, it's going to be maybe August or September. So that's something that's on the calendar that was supposed to happen that will not be scheduled, that won't happen as it was scheduled, but it was something that was supposed to happen on a very specific day. That's one way you can do it. Also with programming, as Kelsey talked about, but also go to there's a website that I use. I think it's On This Day in History, and it lists things based on pop culture, whether it's movies, music, sports, general history, and find out what's going to happen on a particular day. It could be a sporting event that happened. It could be the birthday of an all-time great athlete. It could be the death of an all-time great athlete. It could be, how about a pop culture reference? Let's say it was the day that the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air aired for the first time, or what year did Friday come out, or Usher's debut album. Like all these different things, you can find pegs if you do your research, and from that you can construct a list of guest potential to go out and reach ahead of time, to schedule them, and then all that promotion stuff we were talking earlier, you have all that time to build up to that one particular day if you just use the calendar and research tools that you have available. Another question we have here, and this is one that I've been sort of going back and forth with myself, and Kelsey, I'll give it to you. Have you found a sweet spot in terms of how long an IG live should be? What's too long and maybe what's too short? What is that window that you found?
That's a great question. Honestly, I think it depends on your Instagram followers. And then of course your guests and your topic. I think you can see how many people are watching. So when you see that number kind of start to dwindle, it probably means you should start to wrap up. I think 15 to 30 minutes is a sweet spot because that gives me enough time to fully talk about a topic and hopefully get people hooked on. Now, I've also had longer shows like Ben said, but not everybody's going to watch that. But I also know I can go back and cut it up. But I think when you first start, play around with it. Do a long form, do a short form, and see how many people stayed on it. I don't think there is an exact answer until you've done it at least a couple times. I think repetition is key in this. And it's going to be different for everybody. If you have more followers, of course, you're going to have more people watching, but also there might be a better time of the day. I mean, you talked about the coast, right? I'm on the East Coast. I have to think about people who follow me on the West Coast. I don't want to do it too early because I still want them to be on it, but I don't also want to do it too late. So you, again, just have to see like who's following you and really try to just cater to that demographic.
Hey, Ben, what about you?
Yeah, I think the approach I took, man, because I had two guests on, three guests each episode I've done. So I try to keep them at like 10 to 15 minutes. That way it can still move pretty quickly. It'll still be a little long, but it moves pretty quickly. And like I said, I try to give them 4 to 5 questions, and that's the route I took, man. But I think like what Kelsey said, I mean, like starting off, man, and it really depends on who you got on your guests. Like if you got one, I would probably only do it no more than 15 to 20 minutes, man. If you got two, kind of push it to 30, and if you got another one, maybe do 35 to 40 minutes. But yeah, I was really strict on how long I would keep, because you don't want to go too long and people just get off and like, this is just dragging on and everything. Now, I try to really keep it at about 10 minutes, 15 max for each one of my guests. Just kind of do it how you do it like on a show. You know what I mean? Just kind of keep in mind how long you're going to keep them, and that's how you do it.
Yeah, I've always said the length of your interview oftentimes depends on the conversation itself. If you have someone who's very compelling and you know if something's entertaining or not, you know if something's dragging. And if you don't know, that means you're not paying attention to what you're doing, all right? Exactly. So I've had some that have been, shorter than 30 minutes, but I've also had some that timed out after an hour because the conversation I felt was really good and just kept going on, right? So let me say this. There is no exact right number. There's just not. Shorter typically is better than longer because it's easier to have a more compelling conversation in a shorter period of time than it is a longer period of time. But if you have someone that is really good and is giving you a lot of information that you didn't know prior to that conversation, then for the most part, that whoever's listening in didn't know that either. Right. So as long as you are continuing to learn something through the course of that conversation, then that's pretty good reason to keep it going. But if you are pulling teeth, as we say, to get some compelling answers out of somebody, then it's time to wrap it up. All right. Again, you want to have the best compelling content possible. If you're having to drag it out, it's not going to be that compelling. So again, shorter is definitely better than longer, but just pay attention to the flow of the conversation. Here's a question that I know a lot of people wonder about in this, and I'm going to say no right off the bat. This is not why I'm doing it. Do you make money off your IG lives. That's not what I'm trying to do at all. Literally, I'm just trying to stay connected. And I guess, if you have a large IG following or you have a large YouTube following, you're posting that stuff over there, then yeah, you could probably generate some income from it. But that's not why I'm trying to do it. And let me say this. If I was trying to generate income from it, I would take a totally different approach. And since I'm not, I don't consider it a job, quite honestly. It's something for me to do in the spare time. I'm not trying to make money off of it. Kelsey, from your standpoint, have you considered trying to make money off of it, or are you making money off of it now?
Yeah, let me tell you, I'll be the first to say I wish I was making money off of it, but I'm not. And I love doing it because, look, I'm one of those people that's still waiting for my stimulus check. Like, I really don't know where it is, but that's a whole nother topic. But I feel like I do it because I want to, and it's growing my brand and base. So even though it might not be actual dollars in my pocket, it's helping grow me. And, it's something that I'm investing in myself. And I've gained more followers. I've connected with more PR people. I'm reaching higher tier athletes and reaching higher tier just individuals in general. So I wouldn't say I'm necessarily not making money. I have started to have people reach out and talk about sponsorship. So it's something that I didn't even think about. So now, I'm going back to my boss saying, like, what do we do with this? What do we do with that?
Right.
So don't go into it thinking you're going to make money, but also know that people are watching in places you don't even know. So that opportunity could come up and you want to be prepared to hopefully get some more money in your pocket, because who's going to turn down some extra money, especially
Nobody.
at a time like now?
No. Ben, what about you?
Yeah, man. Like, I definitely didn't even consider making money. If I do, great, like y'all said, but like, nah, the approach I took, man, I just needed to get my voice out. I wanted to be creative and also just try some things, man, because, like I said, I don't work in sports full time anymore. So like the stuff I do now is just like tweeting and that kind of thing. But now I had the opportunity with this Last Dance to actually put out some decent content, work on my interviewing skills, to be able to get my voice out there and build my brand. And like Kelsey was saying, I was able to get more followers on social and to connect with more people. And now I have that ability now and the platform now to take it to a whole nother level in the next couple of weeks when I start this thing back up.
Yeah, I think for anyone doing this, I think your main objective should be two-pronged. One, to continue to work on your skills and sharpen them going forward. And number two, to build your social media following so that can behoove you in any other future endeavor once we get past this pandemic situation. I'm not saying that, once we get past this, you should stop doing IG Lives. I think you continue to do them, but it's also about building an audience and building a brand. And the larger following you can get, the more advantageous it's going to be for the remainder of your career. So that should be your number one focus. But if like Kelsey said, if someone steps to you and talk about, hey, I'd like to sponsor this, maybe a little product placement here, something like that, then that's just gravy as far as I'm concerned looking at it. I think sharpening your skills, getting in those reps, and then building your audience, that should be your number one focus was doing these IG Lives in this current time. Ben, here's a question.
Sure.
Is it paramount that we, the host, conduct these IG Lives on our own personal account, or is our newspapers, station, radio shows, account a possibility? What do you think?
I think that's a possibility, but I'd just rather do mine because people know who I am based off of like my following and everything. But it also depends like who you work for too. I mean, like if you can go live with ESPN, great, because you're going to generate more, followers and that kind of thing, engagement. But for me personally, I just kind of wanted to keep it on mine because I like to be able to control my stuff, and be able to kind of do what I can do, not necessarily worry about any other guidelines from a company standpoint, you know what I mean? Because if you're able to control it, I mean, even though if it may fail, that's all on you. But if it does good, it's definitely on you. So either way, it's going to be a good way because you'll be able to control it.
Kelsey?
Yeah, I think Ben just really covered it. But like you said, I mean, I think if you have the opportunity to go on your companies and they have a good following, why not? But I think when you do it on yours, you can really tailor it and individualize it for something for you. Like my show is called Listen In with K&N. That stands for my name, Kelsey Nicole Nelson. So it makes sense for me to do it on my platforms. And it is a side project that I have. I told it to my boss, like, it has to be, it's through my station, but still it's my personal project. And it's a time for me to grow myself and my brand. So I would recommend, especially if you're a college student, I think that's the time when you need to be growing yourself the most. So when you come out of college, you hopefully have that job. And especially with right now how the media industry is changing, this could really be something that builds onto your portfolio. So for college students, depending on the company you work for, but I know usually they're probably not going to let interns go on and do an Instagram live for them. So definitely for them, I would say do it through your own platforms, build your following, build your base. So, you're more ready for that job, hopefully when you get out of college.
Yeah, I would say if you can do it on your own, then that's only going to help your own personal brand and their own social media platforms. Now, because I work for ESPN, and Ben mentioned this, I've done a couple for the Undefeated. And that was me being a company guy, because L. Duncan and I have done a couple. We did a Zoom show and we did an IG Live show, just the two of us, because, you know, we're tight like that. But then the Undefeated wanted us to do a Zoom show as well as an IG Live for them, and we did it. So I was on the Undefeated IG, and then Elle joined from her own. She has more followers in IG than I do and Undefeated, so we wanted to maximize the audience, so that's why we chose who was going to be an Undefeated, who's going to be their own personal platform. But we did that for our employer, right? But ideally, I would do it for myself. Now, the benefit, if you work for a large company like ESPN or a newspaper, things of that nature, maybe under their social media platform, you could be exposed to more people than you are under yours. So maybe occasionally, yeah, I think it would behoove you to do that. But eventually, as Ben says, you want to be able to control as much of that content as possible. So it may be better for you to do it on your own. Kelsey, you mentioned something about college students and who don't have the same opportunities that we would have right now. How should they go about using IG as they're trying to embark on a career post-graduation? How should they be utilizing this platform right now?
I think college students now have a better opportunity than any generation before them because they grew up with Instagram, right? Like, I mean, now I feel like 8-year-olds have Instagram. I mean, people make Instagram for their babies now, right, when they're born. And so I think they have tools that these jobs are looking for. They can really maximize their social media skills. I mean, digital media right now is probably one of the fastest growing fields, and it's the job that kind of keeps on giving. And so if you're already on Instagram and you're learning how to cut the video and you have these top name guests, you're showing your value to a company early on. So they'll want to bring you on because it's going to be a lot harder. I don't want to say for old heads, but it's going to be a lot harder for us that didn't grow up with it to learn probably as quickly. And then even then too, you could do Instagram live videos and show other people how to use it. That's another way to grow your base and your following. I've seen college students doing that, and that's a great way to grow your YouTube if you're trying to do that. But I think, again, they have something that we didn't have, right? When I was in college, I was on Facebook, I was on Twitter. Instagram came later on, but now that they're growing up in it, they probably know things that not the rest of us know. And companies and jobs are going to rely on them more than ever now to lead that in these companies.
Ben, what's your take on that?
I think, man, like Kelsey said, man, like, you know, I was literally just thinking about this when I was talking. Like, I had Instagram in 2012. So my followers is like a combination of like my friends from high school and college and colleagues and everything. But now these kids really know how to, especially with TikTok now, like they can be really, really, really creative in terms of like pushing out their stuff, you know what I mean? In terms of, you know, just like doing anything, you know what I mean? Just generate likes and retweets and that kind of thing. So I think, like Kelsey said, man, this particular time, they can be so creative. They can do one thing, that thing can blow up instantly, go real viral, especially if you can consistently do that. Like, for example, Desi Banks, the dude out of Atlanta who does all those funny takes or whatever, ESPN picked his stuff up, you know what I mean? So they have that. If these kids now have that ability, especially if they ain't got no other real responsibilities, they still at home, they got plenty of time to do some stuff for real.
Yeah, right. Here's a question from someone. It said, how helpful can IG Lives be for your demo reel, despite it only being in portrait mode instead of landscape? That's a really good question. And so I have a friend who has been doing some social media work for me. She lost her job in the pandemic, so I've had her doing some stuff for me on the side. And one thing that I have her do is she reformats my IG Live sometimes for my clip posts that I do later. And she uses an app called PicFrame. And what she does is she'll take the videos, she'll trim them, and then she'll patch them together. And in the process, she'll mute one side as it goes back and forth. And then when she puts it together, it looks like it looks like this, right? Like the two IG Lives like this, and she just does them like this. And so now it's in landscape. So that is something that you can do yourself. And I mean, it's very simple from a process standpoint. It can be time consuming depending on how long your clip is and things of that nature. But there is technology available that you can take an IG Live format and flip it into something that can be used for landscape. Ben, is that something you do, or you just keep it portrait pushing all the way through?
I keep it portrait, but I cut the actual frame down to 1080 by 1080, which is square frame. So, and then I just blow it up. So I layer the videos, and then what I do is I blow the background up and just blur that out and just keep the portrait mode together. So I actually just wrote down that picture frame app. So I'm gonna definitely hop on.
So what do you use now for like your editing and doing that?
Adobe Premiere. What I do is like I don't know if y'all have had this issue, but like with the exception of this last time I went live on Sunday, I had to screen record my live just to have it saved to my roll. But on Sunday, like it gave me the option to save to my IG live, maybe my IGTV option. Yeah. But I know some people, they've had the option where they can just save it to their camera roll and that'll be that. But I had a lot of issues the last couple of weeks, just trying to get the entire feed. So I just like set my phone down for like an hour, let it screen record, and then I'll airdrop it to my computer, and then I can just go from there.
Yeah, I think that was a change in the IG software that was not announced because originally when you would do it, it would give you the option to save it directly to your IG story. Right. And from that, what I had done, I'd gotten an extension to Chrome that would allow you to record an IG story, but it would do it in two different files. It would be an audio-only file and a video-only file. And then I would use iMovie to bump them together and then save it as one. Right. And that's how I was doing it. But literally, I think it was the same time, Ben. It might have been Sunday or sometime last week. Yeah. Now it says you save it directly to IGTV. Now, from IGTV, there's also a downloader that you can use that records it from IGTV. Then you can put it into a third-party platform from editing standpoint. Yeah. And usually I use iMovie because I have Mac and it's just easy. Right. And I will say this, and Kelsey, I'll ask you the same thing, is that when I posted IGTV, let me rephrase, back up. Originally, when I would post the IG story, I would just put it on raw. Then I would record it. I take it to iMovie, and then I would go in, depending on who it was, if we were talking about something very specific, I would go back and I would edit it with like video or still frames of something we were talking about. I did one with Ryan McGee, one of our ESPN reporters. He's from the South. I'm from the South. So we did like our favorite Southern things, Coke versus Pepsi, Cracker Barrel, Waffle House, stuff like that. So every time I did a question, I had a picture of the two things we were talking about and a little graphic at the bottom, this or that, basically. I also had one with a guy by the name of Jake Wood. He was a former football player at the University of Wisconsin. He was a Marine sniper, and then he came back. He started this nonprofit that uses veterans for disaster relief. And some of the things he were talking about were so specific that I felt it needed some type of video representation. So I went back and I did that entire interview with pictures from him playing football, from him in Iraq and Afghanistan and stuff like that, because it dressed it up more. Do you go about that same way, Kelsey, or is it just about keeping it raw and just putting it out for the people?
Yeah, again, I think it's what you want. Now, if it's for your portfolio and you're looking to get a job from this, I think you guys both covered it. You need to format it and make it look the best, and you want that consistency in your reel. And luckily, I'll be honest, I have a great team around me that does all of that stuff to make it really look pretty. My video editor, I'll shout him out, Peter Roberts Jr., he does that aspect for me. But again, it's because when I'm putting it out there, I want it to be the best brand because I am looking for this in my portfolio. But I don't think there's anything wrong with putting it raw on your social media, especially, again, if you had a really great guest. But for portfolio building, I think definitely take the time to format it, learn all these different systems and tools to make it, look the greatest and the best. And also when you do that, you're more than likely to have the person that you had on share it, and then their team will be happier because it looks the best. You don't want anything to just look like, Joe Schmo could do it. You want them to see that you're a professional journalist and you took time to put this out there.
Yes, because that presentation is also a representation of yourself. Right. And that's a good point that Kelsey says, is that once you do these clips or whatever you do after your IG live, you post them on Twitter, Instagram, what have you, make sure you send them to your guests directly or tag them in every single post, because if they share it, then that's going to it's going to increase the audience to everyone else that could potentially see it. And then maybe they'd be compelled to see your next one with another guest, or maybe someone that they see as a guest that you could have on a future IG. So you have to think of how you are expanding your audience leading up to the IG live, but also after the IG live post. Ben, let me ask you this. How do you, and this is a question from one of our attendees here, how do you kind of go about building that audience if you don't have a major network behind you? Granted, it's easier for me because I work for ESPN. I could tap into a lot of that. But if you don't have that starting out, whether you're in small market television or newspaper, what's the best way to sort of build that audience without that major support behind you?
Man, a lot of posting, a lot of promotion, and a lot of networking, man. Use your network. I mean, maybe your friend might know somebody who knows somebody, and just go about doing it, man. I mean, and then when it comes to posting, man, one thing you have to do, you have to be strategic about your posting. Like, don't post at like 8 o'clock at night. You know what I mean? Do it first thing in the morning. Everybody can see that way. It can go through all your timelines. Like, even now with Instagram, people still like your stuff, some stuff that you might have posted at 9 a.m. and they'll like it at like 6. You know what I mean? So continue just to post and be strategic about your posting when it comes to that. And like I said, man, like, use your network. Like you said, Eves, NABJ, like, I think my first 6 or 7 guests came through NABJ. You know what I mean? And shoot, I mean, and shoot your shot too at some people. I mean, you know, don't go like go at somebody with like 100,000, you know, followers, you know, all this kind of stuff. Nah, if you see somebody or article that you might have read or something like that, it might be decent to where you might be talking about, shoot them a DM like, hey, I'm such as I host an Instagram live broadcast every Sunday. You know, I would love for you to be in my show. If they don't, then okay, cool, move on to the next one. But don't be scared, and you have to go out there and do it and consistently post, you know, do the right things, make sure your graphics are correct, they're legible, the spelling is correct. And if you do a video, like I said, make sure your lighting's good, you know, make sure you have a script or have an idea what you want to say. Don't be fumbling as much, you know, make sure you do those particular things. And once you do that, it'll consistently build. And another thing too, use some hashtags too on Instagram. You know what I mean? A lot of people follow hashtags, that kind of thing, and they'll pop up. As y'all know, y'all follow a lot of hashtags on Instagram. Anything will pop up. It'll be boom, that right there.
Yeah. Let me give you one tip on reaching out to people. As Ben said, be professional. Absolutely. If it's someone that you do not know. Don't step to them like you know them just because you know who they are, okay? Be respectful, number one. And two, don't be thirsty. If you reach out to them multiple times and they say no or they don't respond, do not keep bombarding them with questions. It's only going to make you look foul. There's a guy who's been hitting me up for 2 months to do something with me on his IG Live, and every time he does something with someone, and he's been doing a lot of ESPN people, he tags me on every single thing. And all he's doing is getting on my nerves. And so it's making me less compelled to do anything with him. One, he's had 50 ESPN people already. How many more does he need? But it's the constant nagging that is making me less likely to do it. Do not be thirsty. Fair point. All right.
That's real.
Let me ask you this, Kelsey. This is for you. And Ben sort of talked about this. Like, for me, when I do my IG Lives, I do not have a set schedule. I don't. Again, I typically kind of do them in and around things that are happening from a programming standpoint, more so than I'm going to do this every single Sunday or every single Thursday at this particular time. What is your approach to scheduling yours, and have you found something that's been more effective than others?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I have to have a schedule because I have multiple jobs. And if I don't have a schedule, I'm going to go crazy. Then also, again, it goes back to just building your following. When people know what's expected, they can set their schedules around that. Your friends can set their schedules around it. So for me, I do Thursdays and Saturdays. Thursdays for my Instagram Lives. I do Thursdays and Saturdays for my Facebook Lives and my Periscopes. Thursdays have worked really, really well for me. And then especially for athletes, usually I try to give them the choice of a weekday, weeknight. Most of them are just chilling at home at night. And then, of course, the weekend is great too, because the weekends people are relaxing. So those have turned out to be really well. I don't think it's bad to do spontaneous, but at the same time, if somebody's doing something spontaneous, unless I'm looking at my phone and seeing that notification, I'm probably not going to be watching it. And now I've been trying to have that separate time with my phone and myself, because of course we're working from home and you can look at the screen all day. So I like having a schedule. And again, I think that's how you can build a brand and a base and a following for people to know, like, you know what, Michael's going live every Wednesday at 6. Ben is going live every Monday at 5. And then, you know, people will come to you. And then also for PR too, then they also can know, look, when people are looking to book guests on your show, they're going to be looking. So when they know when to look, they can watch the show and see if it's a good fit. So for me, that's worked well. But again, I think it just depends on what you're looking for.
Yeah. If it helps you from a work schedule standpoint to do something on a regular basis at a certain day at a certain time, then by all means do that. If you do something that is more random, typically the way I do it, then you need to make sure that your promotion of those dates and times is a priority, because if you're going to be bouncing around, then you need to make sure people can bounce with you. And if they don't know where you're bouncing to or when, they can't be with you. So again, it's cool to have a schedule, but if you're not, then you need to make sure your promotion is there as well. Ben, here's another question from one of our attendees.
Yes, sir.
When posting on IG Live, is the goal to create content maintaining journalistic integrity, or making videos with hot takes to generate views? How do you balance not getting too far away from your roots?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think all of us as journalists, we should take this into account. We love to be real and authentic. But at the same time, you know, during this day and age, man, if you say something real off the wall, that's clickbait. You know what I mean? But my background when it comes to journalism, I'm gonna be straight real with you, and I'm just gonna say what's on my mind. I'm not gonna strategically come out of nowhere and just say something that I know is gonna get clickbait and is gonna raise some eyebrows. Right. No, I'm not gonna do that. Now, if you want to, go right ahead. That's your thing. But for me, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna have real conversations. We're gonna talk about real stuff, and I'm gonna let things happen organically. You know what I mean? It's not gonna be anything planned or anything planned that's gonna be outrageous or anything. Now, that's not the way I roll.
Kelsey?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. I mean, I think it's always about maintaining yourself as a journalist. You never know who's looking, and you have to always remember your end goal and what you want to get from this. You don't want to say something that's going to come back and haunt you. But like Ben said, I mean, I'm following the conversation. I've gotten into topics that I didn't think I was going to get into, but because it led me there, we talked about it. But again, I don't want anybody to ever go back and say, did you say this? And I don't feel comfortable saying that I said that. So whatever you say, and I understand people want the clickbait. Like, look, I had a show with LeVar Ball. All right. He said something, right? He said something. So it was clickbait, but he led me to the places that we went to. But also I made sure that I maintained myself so nothing came back to haunt me, right? He was saying some things, but I never wanted to come back and hurt me. But also know your guest. Like next week I'm having Meta World Peace on. He might say something. I don't know. But I will go there with him. But again, I'm going to always make sure that I'm maintaining my journalistic credibility because I represent myself. I'm also teaching. I have people looking at me like I don't want to lose anything based off of something I did on Instagram Live.
Right. I've never been a hot take guy, so to speak. And I think those in our business who are known as hot take guys that actually have a following are journalists first. Okay, so if you want to say that Stephen A. Smith is a hot take guy or Jamel Hill or what have you, you have to remember that they are journalists to the core. And if you have that background, it's going to add more weight to whatever you say that may be perceived as a hot take. Okay, so I say you should always adhere to journalistic integrity as much as possible. And if through the course of conversation, you say something that could be perceived as a hot take, then that's going to be better because of from where that take originates. If you're just coming out talking sideways to make a point or to get some clicks, then people are like, who the hell are you to be saying that? Real talk, right? I mean, if you don't have that background to put you out there, why am I listening to your hot take? You're not anyone that matters if you don't have that journalistic integrity behind you to support the take that you may have said. I mean, let's be real. Skip Bayless says some sideways stuff sometimes. But on the real, he has the journalistic background to say a lot of this stuff. He can be wrong in his takes, but the journalism background that he has gives those takes more weight. And that is the issue. You can't just say something for the sake of saying something because you want to be popular. If you say something, you better have something behind it that gives it weight. You know, people always say everyone has an opinion. I believe there's an opinion and there's a belief. You can believe that LeBron is a better player than Michael Jordan, but if you can't support it with argument and fact and statistics, it's a belief. Your opinion, like the Supreme Court, is based on facts and precedent. That's the difference. So if you're going to have opinion, make sure you have facts behind it. Before we wrap up this Zoom session, so again, thanks for everyone for joining us, and thanks for all the questions coming in. Ben, what are some of the other IG Lives that you are watching right now? Even if it's not necessarily sports-related content, if you check out an IG Live right now, typically who is it?
Man, it's a lot of music, to be honest with you, man. This guy, DJ DiBiase out of Atlanta, he's Big Crits, a rapper out of Mississippi. he goes live like I want to say Saturday, twice a week actually, and he just does like music sets. So I kind of see what he does. I've checked out a guy named Andre Robinson who works for the Clippers. He did an IG live that's strictly dedicated to just like social content people, producers, and that kind of thing. I thought that was pretty dope. That's kind of how my idea. I kind of want to kind of shape it like that. And that's really about it, man. I might check out some other stuff, but a lot of people I follow, man, it's like a lot of rappers. They just be going live, just to be going live, that kind of thing,
right?
Man.
Because it's entertaining, right?
It's very
and
entertaining.
let's be real. That's how a lot of this IG live started, right? I mean, D Nice was on, and then like T-Pain and Little John's IG live versus battle, like
battles,
it was just like people just talking trash and having a good time and being entertaining. So that's cool too.
Yep.
But again, like if you're trying to do this for a certain reason, then you need to prioritize what those reasons are, and that's how you shape it. But you can also look at someone else's stuff, and it may have nothing to do with yours specifically, but you can see something that they do from an entertainment standpoint or a compelling standpoint that you can add to your content. Kelsey, who are you looking at?
I'm like Ben. I love the music battles. I love the versus battles. Because when I go on Instagram, I'm looking to like relax and have fun. But if I'm looking for like actual content, I think the leagues have been doing a phenomenal job of leading that. You talked about the Undefeated. I've watched their lives before. So it just depends what you want. But like I said, I love the music ones. I'm looking forward to this DMX and Eminem one coming up whenever that drops. But it just depends. Honestly, it depends on my mood. I'm a mood person, so.
And then too, Mike, man, like to me, it's really transferable, man, for what you might do behind the mic for a podcast or a radio show or even a TV show, man. And you just really just transferring everything what you did to what you're doing on Instagram Live. The only thing is now you're really live. You know what I mean? You're applying the same concepts in terms of, you know, having a game plan, like I said earlier, having your questions lined up and just really just paying attention to your time limit too. Because, you know, as journalists, especially you, Mike, you know, you got to be kind of listening to producers. You know, you got a lot of things going on, and that's pretty much you're applying the same stuff when it comes to Instagram Live.
Yeah.
Right. It's good practice.
Yeah, exactly. And this is, again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier in terms of the opportunity you have here with this particular format during this particular time. Keep that in mind in the short term, but always looking towards the long term in terms of, you know, what you're trying to accomplish here. I'm all about the music ones. Every versus battle pretty much I've seen, unless I was working at the time. Nelly Riley, as someone called him the other day, was freaking hysterical. I think it was Jamie Foxx maybe called him Nelly Riley. That was hysterical. Yeah. I think for the culture, some of these things have been so entertaining because they've been so bad at times, especially the Teddy Riley babyface one. But my wife and I watch D Nice pretty much all the time, just because it's music and like I'll connect to my television.
Ninth Wonder is a
good one. So it's just like having some new music in the building, like we're out somewhere but we can't go anywhere. So that's just an entertainment standpoint. I mentioned Chris Spencer, who was my guest last night. He does one with his wife Vanessa. It's called Date Night, and they have other couples that join them and they just have a conversation. So it's like two couples going out to dinner. They call it Date Night. So I check that out sometimes with my wife. And Dondre Whitfield, another friend of mine from LA, he does one. He has a book and this whole thing about male versus man. So he's had some entertaining conversations there. He had Will Smith on the other day. It's pretty good. But for the most part, I mean, it's really music for me because I get so much sports content already. I don't necessarily need it from my IG Live, right?
Exactly.
But for those of you who are trying to start on this process of establishing your IG Lives to get a little more content building, then I would seek them out. Watch Ben's, watch Kelsey's, watch mine, find some other people who are doing them consistently and find out what they're doing effectively, and you can add them to yours, and hopefully you can grow your audience as well. So again, I hope everyone enjoyed the session tonight. If you have any other questions, be sure to reach out to us on social media or Sherrod or the listserv through NABJ Sports Task Force. Be more than willing to help you guys out. But this is how we get down with IG Live. We hope to see you guys down the road as well.
Yep.
All right. Hey, listen, just want to first off thank Michael, Benjamin, Kelsey for doing an awesome job really kind of laying out just some of the different ways that you can get into the IG game and hopefully survive in it and maybe make a little paper down the road if you're lucky.
Hey, Sherrod, one more thing before we go.
Yeah.
Can I get a 2-piece spicy with a Sprite?
I'm going to leave that alone.
Nah, he got a Chick-fil-A shirt on, man. That's what he got on, man.
Oh, he does. Oh, he does. Yeah, because that is red. That's not orange. I thought it was Popeyes. My bad. My bad. Can I get a spicy chicken sandwich with some waffle fries and half lemonade, half iced tea?
And he sound like the intercom, too.
So wrong.
This, as Michael said earlier, this is how we get down. We have fun. We love each other. And this is the second of our Innovation in Isolation series. We've got one more coming up for the month of May. It'll be next Tuesday at 7 o'clock. We're going to get into the art of storytelling. We're going to take a little bit of a hiatus and come back in June. But if you've got some ideas for webinars that you want to see in June, reach out to me on my email address, Sherrod B, SHERROD, B as in boy, 111 at gmail.com, and shoot me your ideas, and we'll certainly give it some consideration because we want to keep this going. I think it's great that we've been able to connect with our members and other folks as well to show you all that we got some folks who are doing some seriously awesome things, and they're more than happy to share what they know with you all. So, again, thank you for all who attended this webinar, and hopefully I'll see you in a week. Take care, folks.
Man, appreciate y'all.
Thanks. Bye.
Be safe, everybody.
Yep.